フィードバック読ませていただきました。それでね、クリシャナさんとキングさん。This chapter was very difficult. Learning about when to use which adjective particles is still something I need to improve. With the textbook provided more examples for grammar. This chapter is very difficult. I feel like the textbook didn't give enough clear example of particles regarding kion and thing. So, I came to the conclusion, I totally agree. 畑先生、もうちょっとね。I do like to, I have comments, but this is going to be a long speech today. If your learning starts with the textbook, stay with the textbook, ends with the textbook, that's a bad news. I don't know about subject, but especially something like language, that is not good news. Maybe first year, it's okay. I know part of my job is like Microsoft. I know you don't know how to do things, so I'll set up a wizard for you and I'll walk you through it. But my ultimate job is to make myself useful, meaning making you independent learners. So when you go out there, you know how to do these things. Everything you hear, everything you need to say is not going to be in the textbook. Maybe not in the dictionary either. So, I am from last century. I'm a Showa 41 person. But I don't hardly remember how I lived my first 30 years without the internet. In my 30s, I was so fascinated with internet, I thought I could make living web designing. And I taught myself a lot of computer things and spend a lot of time on the internet. So, I don't know what you think, but this is what I do these days when I'm not sure with the vocabulary, even something like Japanese. My policy on my third language, Spanish, is if I never heard it, I'll check first. Because things could be different. Like, well, I sort of heard a combination of that. So this is what I do. So, 東京は暑い。東京は気温が暑い。東京は温度が暑い。So I search. Then, first of all, what you can say, what you can look, is how many hits you can actually get. これ、覚えててね。1、10、100、1000万、10万、100万、1000。1800万、4000。1800万。1800万、40ヒッツね。東京は暑いでしょ？ This is first item. で、気温が暑い。ね。わかる？で、温度が暑い。温度が暑い。温度が暑い。So this is my first sign. All these things I'm getting, and 東京が暑い。これもうちょっとあげようか。The first sign is, if I don't get too many hits, then maybe it's not right. Maybe the most hits I get is most appropriate. So that's what I suspect first. Then, from here you have to have a little bit of knowledge and you have to be able to read whatever it is. But look at the example. You know how search engines pick up all these things? It can be in the same place, but it can be in a different place in the pages. So when you look at this, Tokyo wa atsui, then you see Tokyo wa atsui right here. Right here. So, at least this is the good example. Then you look at Tokyo wa Kion ga atsui. They have a lot of hits, but I don't see a lot of Kion ga atsui combination. There's Kion here, there's Tokyo here, and that's why I picked it up, right? You see those in bold. Tokyo atsui yoru. This is nothing like ondo ga atsui at all. ね? 気温が暑いか。で、温度が暑いも同じ。The same kind of thing. I do not see 温度が暑い like that. So that's what I do with the internet. This was actually ESL trick, but I started to do with even my own language. Also, what I do recently is, see, I lived too many years in this country, and the language and the vocabulary is all about where your contexts live. So my mother is a gardener and sends me all these flowers, and I want to share with my Facebook friends that will come up. And I do like to know English. But you know, if you live on the other side of the globe, sometimes flowers don't exist. Sometimes they do. Sometimes only really flower picky people know all these, some Latin name. So what I often do, I'm not going to show you here, I go to Wikipedia and they have all these languages on the left. Maybe I should do it. 何にしよう。気温にしようか。まあ、じゃあ地震とかしようか。地震とかね。あ、earthquake にしないといけないのか。earthquake。Wikipedia とかでね。Wikipedia に行くでしょ。そうすると、I don't know if you noticed。で、これね、ずーっとここにたくさんあるでしょ。何がって、ここに日本があるじゃない。Then you get to learn the vocabulary at least. The reason I do this is so that I can learn about those things as well as grammar, vocabulary itself. So those are the techniques that I picked up regarding vocabulary. We just don't have enough context and exposure in the class to have like a native speaker exposure, and that's what you need to do things out of the textbook. But this is something I started doing very recently with this kind of generation in mind. So I would like your comments, questions. So do this, and this might help. Of course you can check with me. For vocabulary, learning to use dictionary is one thing. Checking with actual person is a good thing too. So sometimes I just have to ask my third year and second year to check with me. I just have to have a consultation session before writing something from open topic. So that is one comment. Kurishana-san, Kim-san, do you have any comments? But I do feel that since I'm Microsoft as well, especially for first year, I have to limit my material. So, how I limit my material. See, that's what's different about, to me, achievement test and global test. If you are doing global test, 天気が暑い。I will probably have to definitely say, oh, that doesn't make sense. Take off. But achievement test is testing what we covered in class, meaning I can limit the material and I can say, I should have probably limited the material so that then achievement test, maybe I can, maybe this is okay. So that's the kind of thing I do. So getting the exposure to language is a very important thing. And I know this is going to sound arcane, but when I was in college, I was trying to study English, try to get TESOL score, which was never offered online my bad days, by buying an audio tape from, I think it was like Time magazine or something, maybe, this magazine, English Journal. And English Journal had this VOA. You know what that is? Voice of America, which is copy. See, everybody's like, are you from this planet? Because it was copyright-free material, people used to use that all the time. Now everything is out there. But, if you want to be very copyright careful, that's what. So I used to listen to VOA news in the car without understanding anything. All I remember is President Reagan comes up once in a while, show up. I don't even remember what kind of a news article, but I listened. That's what the magazine said. You just have to get the exposure. Maybe that's good for listening. Maybe that's good for trying to understand the rhythm of the language. So I hope I sound like more American than Japanese speaking English. So that's the kind of thing I did. Try to get yourself the exposure. Maybe even if it's not understandable to you. Because I'm Microsoft, maybe you don't believe it, but when I speak to you, I modify a little bit. But you know what's out there is not modified for you, not necessarily. You know, in the intermediate description, I'm working for the second year requirement thing coming up for the incoming freshmen. You are only supposed to be able, you only have to be understood by sympathetic listener, like people who are used to non-native speakers. But once you want to get out of intermediate speaker, I'm sure you would in someday, then you have to be able to understood, you have to understand what's out there. I'm getting carried away. So what was my point? What was I saying?
Wikipedia.
Listening to people speak.
I lost my point. So I'm going to, I remember now. So, you need lots of exposure. Understanding or not understanding. Maybe you think it's useful. Maybe you don't think it's useful. I would recommend just listen to it. I would just jump yourself into it. Look at the kanji on the internet for no reason. Maybe you pick up something. Maybe you don't. Don't worry about it. Just get a lot of exposure. Kanji, you know, if you grew up in Japan, you will see kanji all over the place every day. So you will see at least, you know, from a childhood, maybe 3-year-old look at it, and maybe somewhere in the brain, oh, maybe kanji in the left and right and all that. If we live here, we don't see kanji anywhere, so we don't have that exposure. So written exposure, spoken exposure, get as much as you can. And you are welcome to send me friend requests on Facebook, because I do accept students, friends, and sometimes I modify things for you to write in Japanese. Also, I have friends, colleagues across the country, so I, post for them. The one thing I enjoy is my mother is computer literate enough to send me all the photos. So when she goes out to a cherry blossom viewing, she sends me all these pictures. So something Japanish, when it happens, I put that on the internet for everybody to share. I am a little obnoxious about cycling and training and eating and nutrition and all that, but if you can put up with that, any comments? She's been friend for 1 day, 2 days? 2 days? Do you recommend? Do you think I'm too obnoxious about my calorie and training and?
No, I like people.
So you can ignore that, and if you can put up with it, then occasionally. But don't say like, oh, I'm skipping to today's Japanese class. Oh, then you get in trouble. I know I'm not the same side as you are. You know I'm not the same side as you are. But we can be friends, and I usually kick them out when I have no business with them, meaning when they graduate. When I like them, or when I have common interests like sports or music or something, I keep them. But basically, that's kind of different from some of my teacher friends who don't start adding friends until they finish and graduate and things like that. So being on the Facebook is sort of part of my job. Try to see what your brain's like, which I don't understand most of the time. But that's the whole point. I have to understand I don't understand. Because you're from different century. You were born in different emperor year. You're just not.